Exams in Wales and Scotland have already been cancelled for next year, given the ongoing uncertainty with coronavirus. But as things stand, pupils in England are still set to sit exams, although maybe slightly later than normal. But is that the right move? Well, we can talk to the Chief Inspector of Ofsted, the schools regulator in England, Amanda Spielman. Thank you very much for being on the programme. So should exams be cancelled in England for this academic year?
We're all facing tough choices about education at the moment. There are some important lessons, I think, that came across from last summer. We saw that young people very much didn't like the solution that was adopted, and we shifted to awarding the grades that had been put forward by schools. But the message that came across from young people was their loss of agency. They really, really didn't like not having the chance to show that they can do better than their teachers assess them at. And beyond that, we know that the exam system, the syllabuses, those are the structures around which upper secondary education is built. And if you take that away without having something to put in its place, you make for a very difficult few months for many children and young people, as we saw last spring and summer for all those year 11s and year 13s who suddenly weren't sure what they were doing with their lives. So it's a much more difficult thing than everybody thinks. At the same time, of course, everyone can see that there are big inequities at the moment between different parts of the country. Who knows how that picture will develop over the next few months? So making sure that we get the right paths, the right opportunities, and the right catch-up for every child who's affected by COVID is, of course, really important.
It's difficult, though, isn't it? Because in part, the chaos that happened last summer came because of the uncertainty. Is there a risk that by not saying now, look, we're just going to not have exams this year, it risks further uncertainty, more U-turns, more delays, more confusion and chaos?
We had the certainty last year of no exams, and I think it's hard to say that was a wonderful outcome for children. So I know that immense numbers of people are working on this at the moment, working out what the best we can do to create as much certainty and as much good education and good environment for children as we can in very difficult times.
I'm interested to know how concerned you are about data on the number of outbreaks in secondary schools specifically. SAGE, the government scientific advisors, say there have been more than 1,000 outbreaks of coronavirus in educational settings since schools reopened in September, and that in the second wave, prevalence has risen significantly in school-aged children. Is this a worry?
Well, of course, there is a national worry about rates of infection. I think it's very important to remember that we rarely know when a case is reported or when cases are reported where they happen. What we've seen coming out of SAGE at this stage, I don't think says that everybody believes that schools are the biggest problem in this pandemic. And of course, the message that we've been putting across from the reports we published this week is how extraordinarily high the damage to children can be when they're taken out of all the normal structures and systems that help them develop, look after them for many months. Not just the education, their personal development can go backwards, their social skills, and of course that watchful eye that teachers have for bigger things going wrong in children's lives, whether it's sort of medical, special educational needs, or sadly sometimes abuse or neglect in the family. All of those things add up to a really, really strong set of reasons why there's a great deal of advantage to keeping children in school.
Given all the issues that you say, given all the reasons why it's so important for children to be in school, how concerned are you about the fact that so many children are being sent home if there is a single case of COVID in their year group, for example, and that so many people are missing school as a result?
I think we're seeing how hard it is to translate guidance that shifts in difficult times. We know that health guidance has shifted regularly. We know that schools are having to interpret. Getting that balance right of enough local flexibility without leaving schools at sea is really hard. So people can take the same guidance, and one school will believe that it needs to isolate a handful of children. Another will believe that it needs to isolate a whole year group. It's really, really hard for everybody working with it to get the kind of consistency that a dream world we'd have. I'm hoping that we'll see a sort of more consistent picture emerging as people get used to working with these restrictions and these rules.
As you say, it feels like the guidance is just being interpreted very differently by different head teachers in different schools. Does there need to be more clarity, and in what sort of direction?
As I said, it's such a delicate balance between being so prescriptive that people can't make it work within the varying circumstances and contexts, and leaving too much for the school. I know that people on each iteration, people are working, taking feedback, trying to give schools, teachers, parents the clarity in the strong framework they all need to do the very best for children.
And just finally, universities. The government has announced this travel window where university students can return back to their homes for Christmas. We saw, of course, a spike in COVID infections around the time when universities went back. COVID rates in many university towns above the national average. Are you concerned that we're going to see another spike?
You're getting me off my patch there, in terms of both universities and public health. All I can say is that for all of us, we have to take the advice that comes and work within the restrictions that are applying to us all. And it'd be quite wrong for me or anybody else to argue about that. What is important is that we make sure that all sides of the picture are seen and understood. And part of our job at Ofsted is to make sure that people understand the impact on the children on whom our work throws light.
OK, thank you very much for being on the programme. Always good to talk. Thank you.